My name is Naomi Clark, and 6 hours earlier, I thought the biggest problem in my life was whether to block my ex-boyfriend's number or keep torturing myself by reading his Instagram stories. By midnight, I would learn that some problems are much bigger than a failed relationship, and some men are far more dangerous than a cheating boyfriend could ever be. The evening started innocently enough. My best friend Simone had dragged me out for drinks after work, insisting that 3 months of moping over Marcus was enough. "You need to get back out there," she'd said, steering me toward the Meridian's bar, a sleek establishment known for attracting the city's elite. "Even if you just flirt with someone, anything to remind you that Marcus was not the only man on the planet." I hadn't wanted to come. After a long day managing the legal department at Henderson Associates, the last thing I wanted was to squeeze into heels and a dress and pretend to be interested in meaningless conversation. But Simone had that look in her eyes, the one that said she would physically drag me if necessary, so I'd changed in the office bathroom and met her at the bar. The Meridian was exactly what I expected: dim lighting that somehow made everyone look mysterious, soft jazz playing in the background, and a clientele that screamed old money and new success. Simone was in her element, already chatting up an investment banker at the bar. I nursed my wine and tried not to check my phone every 5 minutes. That's when the text arrived. From Marcus. Again. "I miss you. Can we talk?" My stomach twisted. It was the 4th message that week, each one a variation of the same theme. He missed me. He was sorry. Could we just talk? Never mind that I'd caught him in bed with someone else. Never mind that he'd spent 6 months lying to my face. Somehow, in Marcus's mind, a few apologetic texts should erase everything. I showed the message to Simone, who rolled her eyes so hard I was surprised they didn't fall out of her head. "Block him," she said. "Seriously, Nay. You keep saying you will, but you never do. Just delete his number and block him, tonight." She was right, of course. I'd been threatening to block Marcus for weeks, but something always stopped me. Not because I wanted him back, but because seeing those messages, even the pathetic ones, gave me some twisted sense of validation. Like maybe he did actually feel bad about what he'd done. "You're right," I said, pulling up his contact information. "I'm doing it. Right now." But as my finger hovered over the delete button, another presence seemed to fill the space around me. The ambient noise of the bar dimmed slightly, and I felt rather than saw someone approach. When I looked up, a man stood beside our table, and the first thing I noticed was that he didn't belong with the rest of the crowd. Everyone else in the Meridian looked polished but safe, dressed in designer labels and carrying the soft confidence of inherited wealth. This man looked dangerous, not in an obvious way, not like someone trying to appear threatening, but there was something about him that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His dark hair was styled with careless precision, and his eyes, when they met mine, were the color of espresso and twice as intense. "Forgive the intrusion," he said, and his voice carried the faint musical accent of someone who'd grown up speaking Italian. "But I couldn't help but notice you seemed troubled." Simone's eyes went wide. I could practically see her mentally calculating whether this was amazing or alarming. "We're fine," I said politely, trying to sound dismissive. "Just having a private conversation." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. Though I would suggest whatever decision you're making about that phone, you make it quickly. These establishments have eyes everywhere, and not all of them friendly." Before I could respond, he turned and walked toward a private section at the back of the bar, where several other men in expensive suits waited. They all had the same dangerous quality, the same sense of barely contained power. What the hell was that? Simone whispered, her earlier confidence suddenly gone. Was that a threat? I don't think so, I said, though my heart was racing. Maybe just strange timing. But the encounter had unsettled me enough that I did what I'd been avoiding for months. I deleted Marcus's contact information, blocked his number, and for good measure, blocked him on every social media platform I could think of. It felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying, like burning a bridge with no way back across. There, I said, showing Simone my phone. Done. Happy? She grinned. Ecstatic. Now let's celebrate properly. I'm buying us another round, and you're going to help me figure out if that investment banker is actually interested or just being polite. I laughed, grateful for the distraction, and for the next hour, we actually managed to have fun. Simone did her thing, charming everyone within a 5-foot radius, while I people-watched and tried to pretend the strange man's comment hadn't lodged itself in my brain like a splinter I couldn't quite extract. At 11, Simone's investment banker offered to give her a ride home. You okay getting back on your own? She asked, already halfway to the door. I can stay if you want. Go, I told her. I'll call a car. You have fun. She hugged me and disappeared into the night, leaving me to finish my wine in peace. I was scrolling through my phone, looking for a rideshare app, when I noticed a text from a number I didn't recognize. Don't look now, but the man in the gray suit at the bar has been watching you for the past 20 minutes. He just sent someone to follow your friend. You need to leave. Now. My blood turned to ice. My first instinct was to look toward the bar, but the text had specifically told me not to. Instead, I used my phone's camera, pretending to check my makeup while actually scanning the room. There. A man in a gray suit, mid-40s, unremarkable features except for the intensity of his stare when he thought no one was looking. And sure enough, another man near the exit, speaking into his phone while glancing between the door and me. My hands started shaking. This had to be a joke, some kind of sick prank. But the text arrived from the same unknown number before I could convince myself of that. Stand up slowly, walk toward the restrooms. There's an exit through the kitchen. One of my men will meet you there. Trust me. Or take your chances with the man in gray. Your choice. Who sends a text like that? Who even talks like that? But the alternative was sitting there, hoping I was wrong about the threat. And I hadn't survived law school and 4 years in corporate litigation by ignoring red flags. I stood, grabbed my purse, and walked as casually as I could toward the restroom sign. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step feeling like it took an hour. The hallway to the restrooms was empty, dimly lit, and at the far end, I could see a door marked Staff Only. I pushed through it, finding myself in the organized chaos of the Meridian's kitchen. Chefs and servers moved with practiced efficiency, barely glancing at me as I navigated between stainless steel counters and the smell of garlic and wine reduction. Miss Clark? A voice spoke from near the back exit, a young man in a dark suit, early 20s, with the build of someone who spent serious time in a gym. Please, this way, quickly. I should have been terrified. I should have run back to the bar, found security, called the police. Instead, I followed him out into the alley behind the hotel. A black sedan waited, engine running, and standing beside it was the man from earlier, the one who'd commented on my phone. Get in, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. We don't have much time. I'm not getting into a car with a stranger, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I don't know who you are or what's happening. My name is Dante Ravenna, he said, and what's happening is that you've attracted the attention of some very dangerous people. People who believe you have information they want. Now you can get in this car and let me protect you, or you can stay here and find out what those men want. But make your decision now because they'll realize you're gone in about 30 seconds. As if on cue, shouts erupted from inside the hotel. Dante's expression didn't change, but his hand moved to his jacket, where I caught the faint outline of what had to be a weapon. Last chance, Miss Clark. I got in the car. The moment the door closed, we were moving, the sedan pulling out of the alley and into the city streets with professional precision. I sat in the back seat, with Dante, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Someone want to tell me what's happening, I managed to say. Why would anyone be following me? I'm a corporate attorney. I review contracts and attend boring meetings. I don't have any information anyone would want. Dante pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then turned to face me properly. In the better light of the car's interior, I could see he was probably in his early 30s, with strong features and a small scar above his left eyebrow that suggested a violent past. When you deleted that contact from your phone, he said, did you happen to notice the number? I frowned. It was my ex-boyfriend, Marcus Donnelly. Why would his number matter? Because Marcus Donnelly has been under investigation for money laundering for the past 8 months, Dante said. And 3 days ago, he became a federal informant. The men following you believe you might know something about his dealings. They believe you might have evidence that could expose their operations. The world tilted sideways. That's insane. Marcus worked in real estate development. He was boring. Obsessed with his career, sure, but criminal? No way. Your ex-boyfriend, Dante said slowly, like explaining something to a child, has been moving money for the Torino crime family for the past 3 years. When he agreed to testify, he became a liability to a lot of very powerful people. People who will do anything to ensure he doesn't make it to that courthouse, including leveraging anyone he might have confided in. But he didn't confide in me, I said, hearing the desperation in my own voice. We barely talked about work. I didn't know anything about this. I believe you, Dante said. Unfortunately, the Torinos don't know that. All they know is that you were in a relationship with their informant, which means you're leverage or a threat, probably both. I pressed my hands against my eyes, trying to process information that seemed to belong in a movie rather than my actual life. This can't be happening. This isn't real. I assure you it's very real, Miss Clark, but you're safe now. My family has been watching the situation with Marcus Donnelly. When we realized the Torinos had identified you as a target, we intervened. I dropped my hands and looked at him directly. Your family. And what family would that be, exactly? Dante smiled, and this time it did reach his eyes, though the effect wasn't particularly comforting. The Ravenna family. We've been in the import-export business for 4 generations. Import-export is code for organized crime, isn't it? Sometimes. We prefer to think of ourselves as entrepreneurs with diverse interests, some more legitimate than others. So you're telling me, I said, trying to wrap my mind around this entire nightmare, that I've been rescued from one crime family by another crime family? Rescued is the correct term, Dante said. As for the rest, let's say we have a vested interest in seeing the Torinos weakened. Your ex-boyfriend's testimony will accomplish that. Keeping you safe ensures he doesn't have second thoughts about testifying. The car had been moving through the city while we talked, and I realized we were heading toward the waterfront, where old warehouses had been converted into expensive loft apartments. The sedan pulled up to a building that looked like it had once housed industrial equipment, but now featured floor-to-ceiling windows and modern architecture. Where are we? I asked. Somewhere safe, somewhere the Torinos won't think to look. My apartment, I said. My job, my life. I can't just disappear. Dante's expression softened slightly. Miss Clark, Naomi, listen to me carefully. The Torinos have already been to your apartment. They're watching your office. They've intercepted your communications. Until Marcus testifies, which won't happen for another 3 weeks, you are not safe in any location they might expect you to be. So yes, you can disappear, because the alternative is being kidnapped or worse. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of hiding from criminals who thought I knew something I didn't actually know. 3 weeks of my life put on hold because my ex-boyfriend had been lying about more than just his fidelity. What if I go to the police? I asked. What if I tell them everything? The police can't protect you, Dante said flatly. The Torinos have connections everywhere. Prison guards, patrol officers, even federal agents. They've existed for 70 years by being smarter and more ruthless than law enforcement expects. Your only real protection right now is anonymity and the fact that my family has resources the police don't. We got out of the car and entered the building through a private entrance. The elevator required a key card, which Dante provided, and we rode up in silence to the top floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment that was clearly designed by someone with both money and taste. Hardwood floors, minimalist furniture, art that looked original rather than printed, and a view of the harbor that probably cost more than I made in a year. This is one of our safe houses, Dante said, typing a code into a security panel by the door. Everything you need is here. Clothes, food, internet access. My security team will be monitoring the building 24/7. You'll be safe here. I walked to the windows, looking out at the city lights reflected in the dark water. Somewhere out there, men were searching for me. Men who thought nothing of threatening, hurting, or killing to protect their interests. And I'd walked into their crosshairs simply by dating the wrong person. I don't understand why you're helping me, I said quietly. You said your family has interests, but why go to this much trouble? There has to be something in it for you. Dante moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. You're right, he said. There is something in it for us. The Torinos have been expanding their territory, stepping on our operations. Your ex-boyfriend's testimony will severely damage their organization. But if they eliminate their informant or discredit him by claiming coercion through threats to his ex-girlfriend, the whole case falls apart. So keeping you safe keeps our interests aligned with federal prosecution. So, I'm a chess piece, I said bitterly, just a strategic move in someone else's game. No, Dante said, and there was something different in his voice. Softer, almost gentle. You're a person who got caught in something that isn't your fault, and regardless of strategic interests, I don't believe in allowing innocent people to suffer for the crimes of others. That's not how my family operates. I wanted to laugh at that. The idea of a crime family with ethics seemed ridiculous, but there was something in Dante's eyes, a sincerity I didn't expect, that made me believe he actually meant what he said. So what now? I asked. I just stay here for 3 weeks? Do nothing? Wait for this to be over? Not quite nothing, Dante said. He pulled out his phone again, scrolling through something before holding it out to me. This is your ex-boyfriend, 20 minutes ago. The screen showed a photo of Marcus, clearly taken from security footage. He was entering what looked like a federal building, surrounded by agents. He looked terrified. The Torinos made a move tonight, Dante said. An attempt to grab him before tomorrow's testimony. It failed, obviously, but it means they're getting desperate. which makes you even more valuable to them. Tomorrow? I said. You told me 3 weeks. I told you what I knew at the time. Things have accelerated. Marcus will testify tomorrow afternoon. By this time tomorrow night, he'll be in witness protection, and the Torinos will have much bigger problems than finding you. You just need to stay safe for approximately 24 hours. 24 hours. 1 day. I could manage 1 day of hiding in a luxury penthouse. It wasn't ideal, but it was finite. Survivable. Okay, I said. 24 hours. I can do that. Dante smiled, and this time it seemed genuinely pleased. Good. I'll have my people bring you some things from your apartment. Nothing that could be tracked, but personal items, clothes, your laptop, if you need to work. Whatever makes you comfortable. And you? I asked. Are you staying here too? I have business to attend to, he said, but I'll return later tonight, and my security team will be right downstairs. You're not alone, Naomi. I promise you that. He left, and I found myself alone in a stranger's apartment, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 2 hours. I'd gone from a boring night at a bar to being protected by what was essentially the Mafia. My ex-boyfriend was a money launderer. Dangerous men wanted to use me as leverage. And somehow, the most unsettling thing about all of it was the way Dante Ravenna looked at me, like I was something more than just a strategic asset. I explored the apartment, finding a bedroom with a bed that looked absurdly comfortable and a bathroom that featured a tub big enough to swim in. Someone had already stocked the closet with clothes in approximately my size, all designer labels and expensive fabrics. The kitchen was fully stocked with both fresh and prepared foods. Everything about the space screamed money and preparation. I made myself tea, sat on the couch, and tried to call Simone. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. A cold knot of fear formed in my stomach. The apartment's intercom buzzed. Miss Clark, it's Dante. I'm coming back up. A minute later, he entered the apartment, his expression grim. Your friend Simone is fine, he said immediately, reading the panic in my eyes. But there was an incident. The man she left with was approached by Torino associates. She's safe now, in protective custody with federal agents, but I thought you should know immediately so you wouldn't worry. They went after her because of me, I said, feeling sick. They went after her because they're running out of options, Dante corrected. This isn't your fault, Naomi. But yes, anyone connected to you is potentially at risk until this is over. I set down my tea with shaking hands. My family, my parents. Already being monitored by federal agents. They don't know why. They've been told it's a precautionary measure related to a corporate security issue. They're safe. How is this my life? I whispered. 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was getting over a bad relationship. Now people are in danger because they know me. Dante sat down beside me, close but not touching. In 24 hours, this will be over. Marcus will testify. The Torinos will have their attention elsewhere. You can go back to your normal life. Can I? I looked at him directly. Can I really just forget this happened? Forget that crime families exist, that they were willing to hurt my friends, that the man I dated for 2 years was a criminal? How do I just go back to reviewing contracts and pretending the world is safe? You don't forget, Dante said quietly. You learn from it. You become more careful, more aware. You recognize that the world has always been exactly this dangerous. You just didn't see it before. And seeing it, understanding it, that makes you safer, not more vulnerable. Says the man who lives in this world, I said. You're comfortable with violence and danger. I'm a lawyer. I'm supposed to work within systems, not around them. The law is a system created by people, Dante said, and people are flawed, corruptible, capable of terrible things no matter what rules exist. My world acknowledges that. Your world pretends otherwise. Neither perspective is entirely correct, but at least mine doesn't pretend to be something it's not. I wanted to argue with him, to defend the legal system I'd dedicated my career to, but I'd seen enough corruption, enough injustice, enough powerful people escaping consequences to know he wasn't entirely wrong. The law was supposed to protect people, but it often protected power instead. "Why are you still here?" I asked. "You said you had business?" "I did. I canceled it." He leaned back against the couch, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked almost relaxed. "The truth is, I wanted to make sure you were actually okay. Not just physically safe, but emotionally managing the situation. It's not every day someone's reality gets completely reorganized." "Is this the part where you tell me you're not actually a bad person? That you have a code, or you only hurt people who deserve it, or some other justification?" Dante laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his entire face. "No, I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not. I've done things you would consider immoral. I've hurt people. I've broken laws. I operate in a world where violence is currency and loyalty is more valuable than money. I'm not a good man by your definition, Naomi, but I'm not needlessly cruel either, and I believe in protecting those who can't protect themselves. Sometimes that makes me better than the people who pretend to operate within legal boundaries while doing far worse things." "That's a convenient philosophy," I said. "Perhaps, but it's honest." He turned to look at me fully. "You don't have to trust me. You don't have to like me. But for the next 24 hours, I'm the only thing standing between you and a very bad situation. So I'm asking you to put aside your judgments and let me keep you safe. After tomorrow, you never have to see me again." Something about that last statement bothered me more than it should have. The idea of never seeing Dante again should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like loss, which made absolutely no sense given I'd known him for barely 3 hours. "I should try to sleep," I said, standing up. "If this is really going to be over tomorrow, I should probably rest." "Good idea." Dante stood as well, maintaining a careful distance. "I'll be in the guest room if you need anything. And remember, security is right downstairs. You're completely safe here." I nodded and walked toward the bedroom, pausing at the door. "Dante, thank you for keeping me safe. Whatever your reasons, whatever your world is like, you didn't have to help me personally. You could have just assigned someone else. So thank you for caring enough to be here yourself." His expression softened in a way I hadn't seen before. "Get some rest, Naomi. Tomorrow is a new day." I changed into the expensive pajamas someone had stocked in the bedroom, lay down on the most comfortable bed I'd ever experienced, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. My mind wouldn't stop racing through everything that had happened. Marcus's betrayal went so much deeper than I'd imagined. The danger I'd been in without knowing. The strange man who'd saved me for strategic reasons but seemed to care about more than just strategy. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I drifted off to sleep. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving in the kitchen. For a moment, I forgot where I was, expecting to see my own apartment. Then memory crashed back, and I sat up quickly, heart racing. "It's just me," Dante called from the kitchen. "Thought you might appreciate breakfast." I wrapped myself in the robe that had been laid out and walked into the kitchen, where Dante was plating what looked like a professional quality omelet. He'd changed clothes, now wearing casual pants and a white button-down shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He looked younger like this, less intimidating, though no less attractive. You cook? I asked. One of many useful skills, he said, handing me a plate and a cup of perfect coffee. I figured we should eat before everything happens today. It's going to be a long day. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Dante's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression went carefully neutral in a way that immediately put me on alert. What? I asked. Marcus's testimony has been moved up. He's testifying in 2 hours. The Torinos know about the change. They're mobilizing everything they have for one last attempt to stop him. But he's in federal custody, I said. How could they possibly get to him? They can't, but they can create chaos, distractions. And in chaos, mistakes happen. People get hurt, which is why you're staying here, under guard, until this is completely over. How long will that be? Dante checked his phone again. Best case, this afternoon. Worst case? A few days if things get complicated. But either way, the critical window is the next few hours. After his testimony is recorded, you stop being valuable to them. I set down my coffee, no longer hungry. And what about you? Are you going somewhere? I have to coordinate with my people. Make sure none of this blowback touches my family's interests. But I'll have my best security team here. You'll be safe, Naomi. I promise you that. You keep making that promise, I said. But you can't control everything. What if something goes wrong? Dante moved around the counter to stand in front of me. He was close enough that I had to tilt my head back to look at him, close enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw and a small scar I hadn't noticed before above his collar. Nothing will go wrong, he said quietly. I won't allow it. That's not how life works. You can't just forbid bad things from happening. In my world, I can do exactly that, and I have resources you can't imagine. Money, people, connections. If I say you're under my protection, then you're as safe as if you were sitting in a vault surrounded by armed guards. Actually, that's not far from the truth. His confidence should have seemed arrogant, but instead it felt reassuring, like maybe, just maybe, I could trust him to keep his promises. When this is over, I found myself saying, will you tell me more about your world? About how someone ends up doing what you do? Dante smiled slightly. Why would you want to know? Because nothing about you makes sense to me. You're educated, obviously intelligent, probably from money given how you carry yourself. You could have done anything. So why this? Family, he said simply. And before you judge that answer too harshly, ask yourself what you would do for your family. How far you would go to protect them, to honor them. Everyone has a line they won't cross until their family's safety requires them to cross it. I was just born into a family where that line was drawn differently than yours. My phone, which had been charging on the counter, suddenly buzzed. Not a call or a text, but an alert from an app I didn't recognize. Dante picked it up before I could reach it. His face went completely still as he read whatever message had appeared. What? I asked, fear creeping back in. They found you, he said quietly. I don't know how, but the Torinos know you're here. We need to move. Now. Everything happened very fast after that. Dante made 3 quick phone calls in Italian, speaking too rapidly for me to follow. The apartment's intercom buzzed, and several men entered, all armed, all moving with military precision. Get dressed, Dante told me. Something you can move in, shoes you can run in if necessary, 60 seconds. I ran to the bedroom, threw on jeans and a sweater, grabbed the first pair of sneakers I found. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tie the laces. This couldn't be happening. I was supposed to be safe here. When I came back out, Dante was wearing a shoulder holster with a gun I absolutely did not want to think about. He took one look at me and seemed to make a decision. "Change of plans," he said. "You're staying with me. No more safe houses they might have compromised. You stay where I can see you, where I know exactly who has access. Anyone have a problem with that?" The security team, 3 large men who looked like they could break someone in half, all shook their heads. One of them, younger than the others with a scar across his eyebrow, said something in Italian that made Dante nod sharply. "Let's move," Dante said, taking my arm, not roughly but firmly. "Stay close to me. Don't speak unless I ask you something. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to get down, you get down immediately. Understood?" I nodded, too frightened to trust my voice. We took a service elevator down to the garage, where 2 black SUVs waited. Dante put me in the back of the second vehicle, then got in beside me. The other security team members divided between the vehicles, and we pulled out into the morning traffic. "How did they find me?" I asked once we were moving. "Your phone," Dante said. "It has to be. Despite my precautions, they must have found a way to track it, which means they have resources I didn't anticipate. That's concerning." He took my phone and removed the battery, then opened the window and threw the entire thing into a trash can as we passed. I watched my connection to the outside world disappear with a strange sense of detachment. "That phone had my whole life on it," I said. "That phone was going to get you killed," Dante countered. "I'll buy you a new one, with a number they don't have, after this is over." We drove for 20 minutes, taking a route that seemed designed to lose any potential followers. Finally, we pulled up to a restaurant I recognized, a high-end Italian place called Ravenna's, the same last name as Dante. "Your restaurant?" I asked. "My family's restaurant," he confirmed, "and the safest place in the city for you right now. We own the entire building. Every employee has been with us for years. Every entrance is monitored, and my private apartment is on the top floor. No one gets up there without going through me first." We entered through the back, passing through a kitchen that smelled incredible despite the early hour. Staff were already preparing for lunch service, and every single person stopped what they were doing to greet Dante respectfully in Italian. He responded to each one, calm and collected, giving no indication that anything was wrong. His apartment was accessed by a private elevator that required both a key and a fingerprint scan. When the doors opened directly into the space, I found myself in a room that was somehow both masculine and elegant. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and original artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. "This is where you live?" I asked. "This is where I live," Dante confirmed, "and where you'll stay until I get word that Marcus's testimony is complete and you're no longer a target. My security team will be posted downstairs. No one gets up here without my permission. You're safe now, Naomi. Actually safe." I walked to the windows, which overlooked the city from 15 stories up. Somewhere out there, men were trying to stop a testimony that would destroy their organization, and I was caught in the middle of it, protected by a man who lived in the same kind of world as my enemies. "Can I ask you something?" I said, not turning around. "Of course." "When this is over, when I'm no longer useful to your strategic interests, what happens to me then? Do I just go back to my normal life and pretend none of this happened? Do I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone else might decide I know too much?" I heard him move closer, felt his presence behind me. "When this is over," he said quietly, "you go back to exactly the life you want. No one will threaten you. No one will follow you. You'll be as safe as you were before any of this started. I give you my word." "Your word," I said, finally turning to face him. Why should your word mean anything to me? You're a criminal, Dante. You've said so yourself. You live in a world where violence is normal. Why should I trust any promise you make? He moved closer, and I found myself trapped between him and the window, though I didn't feel threatened, just overwhelmed by his proximity, by the intensity of his presence. Because unlike most people, I don't make promises I can't keep, he said. When I give my word, it's binding. It's sacred. In my world, reputation is everything. A man who breaks his word doesn't survive long. So when I tell you that you'll be safe, I mean it absolutely. I would die before I let anything happen to you. But why? I asked. Why do you care so much? I'm just some random woman caught up in your business. Because, he said, and there was something raw in his voice, something vulnerable. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be in danger. You're innocent in all of this, and I can't stand the idea of innocent people suffering for the sins of others. It's why I do what I do, why I fight the battles I fight. Someone has to protect the people who can't protect themselves. That's almost noble, I said softly. For a criminal. He smiled, but it was sad. I never claimed to be noble. Just necessary. We stood there for a long moment, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off his body, see the tiny flecks of gold in his dark eyes. There was something happening between us, something electric and dangerous that had nothing to do with the actual danger I was in. Dante, I started to say, but his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered in Italian, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up. When he looked at me again, his expression was neutral, professional. Marcus is testifying right now, he said. It's happening. In approximately 2 hours, this will all be over. 2 hours. 120 minutes between me and my normal life. It should have felt like relief. Instead, I felt something else. Something complicated and unsettling that I didn't want to examine too closely. What do we do for 2 hours? I asked. We wait, Dante said. I have some work I need to attend to in my office. There are books, movies, food in the kitchen. Make yourself comfortable, and try not to worry. He disappeared into what I assumed was his office, leaving me alone in his apartment. I tried to read, but couldn't focus. Tried to watch television, but nothing held my interest. Finally, I ended up back at the windows, watching the city go about its business far below, completely unaware of the drama playing out in federal court. Time moved strangely. Sometimes a minute felt like an hour. Other times I'd look at the clock and realize 20 minutes had passed without me noticing. I kept expecting something dramatic to happen, some attack or crisis, but everything remained quiet. Finally, Dante emerged from his office. He looked different somehow. Tired, maybe, or relieved. It's done, he said. Marcus testified. The Torinos are done. Several high-ranking members have already been arrested. By tomorrow, their organization will be in complete chaos. You're safe now, Naomi. You can go home. I should have been happy, ecstatic even. Instead, I felt hollow. Just like that? I asked. It's over? Just like that, he confirmed. I'll have my people take you back to your apartment. Everything should be exactly as you left it. Your friend Simone is already there, waiting for you. Your parents have been informed that the security concern has passed. Everything goes back to normal. Normal? My normal life, reviewing contracts and attending meetings and dating safe, boring men who would never lie about being money launderers. My normal life, which had seemed so important 48 hours ago and now felt impossibly small. I should thank you, I said, for keeping me safe, for caring enough to do more than just the strategic minimum. You don't need to thank me, Dante said. I was just doing what needed to be done. No, I said, moving closer to him. You did more than that. You could have stuck me in a safe house with guards and forgotten about me. Instead, you stayed with me, made sure I was okay, threw my phone away, and brought me to your own home. That's not strategy, Dante. That's caring. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You should go, he said quietly, before this gets complicated. What if I want it to be complicated? The words were out before I could stop them. What if I don't want to just go back to my normal life and pretend none of this happened? Naomi, I deleted his number, I interrupted. Marcus, I deleted his contact and blocked him because I was done with lying, done with men who weren't what they pretended to be. But you've never pretended to be anything other than what you are. You told me straight out that you're a criminal, that you've done things I would consider immoral. You didn't try to make yourself seem better or safer than you actually are. That's more honest than anyone else in my life has been. Honesty doesn't make me a good person, Dante said. It doesn't make me someone you should want in your life. Your world and my world, they don't mix, Naomi. You go back to your law firm and your safe friends and your normal life. That's what's best for you. Don't tell me what's best for me, I said, frustrated. I'm so tired of people deciding things for me. Marcus decided he could cheat and I wouldn't find out. The Torinos decided I was leverage. Even you decided to protect me without asking if I wanted protection. Don't I get a say in any of this? What are you saying? Dante asked carefully. I'm saying I don't want to leave. Not yet. I'm saying that in the past 48 hours, I felt more alive, more present, more real than I have in years of my supposedly normal life. I'm saying that you scare me and fascinate me in equal measure, and I want to understand why. And I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, I want to see what happens if I don't just walk away. Dante stared at me for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine surprise and what almost seemed like delight. You're insane, he said. You know that, right? I just told you I'm a criminal, that I've hurt people, that I operate outside every law you've dedicated your career to upholding, and your response is that you want to stay. I'm a good lawyer precisely because I understand that the world isn't black and white, I said, that sometimes the law fails people, and sometimes the people operating outside the law have better intentions than the people writing it. You saved my life, Dante. You kept me safe when you didn't have to. You treated me like a person instead of an asset. So yes, I want to stay, at least long enough to figure out why I care so much about never seeing you again. He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. If you stay, he said quietly, if you really want to see what this could be, you need to understand what you're choosing. My world is dangerous, not just sometimes, but constantly. The Torinos are finished, but there are always other threats, other organizations, other men who think violence is the solution to their problems. Being with me, being in my life, means accepting that danger as part of your reality. And if I'm willing to accept that, I asked, what then? Then I would ask you something, he said. That phone you deleted, that ex-boyfriend who lied to you and betrayed you. Are you truly done with him? Because if you're not, if there's any part of you that might go back to that life, that safety, then this conversation ends now. I don't share, Naomi. If you're mine, you're completely mine. No lingering feelings for men who didn't deserve you. No second thoughts about choosing danger over safety. The possessiveness in his voice should have been a red flag, should have sent me running. Instead, it sent heat through me that had nothing to do with fear. I deleted his number, I said, not just from my phone, but from my life. I'm done with men who lie, who pretend to be something they're not. Marcus is part of a past I have no interest in revisiting. Good, Dante said. He reached out and ran his thumb along my jaw, the touch gentle despite the calluses on his hands. Because I need you to understand something. From the moment you got in my car, I knew you were different. Special. And I've been fighting the urge to make you mine ever since. The only reason I'm letting you choose to walk away is because you deserve that choice. But if you stay, if you decide this is what you want, I won't hold back anymore. I'm not asking you to hold back, I said. I'm asking you to let me in, to show me your world, even the parts of it that are dark. I'm asking for truth, Dante. Complete truth. Can you give me that? Instead of answering with words, he kissed me. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't tentative. It was consuming, demanding, a kiss that claimed and promised and warned all at once. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head exactly where he wanted it, and I stopped thinking about danger or consequences or anything except the feeling of his mouth on mine. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. That's your answer, he said. Complete truth. No more holding back. No more pretending I'm just keeping you safe out of strategic interest. I want you, Naomi Clark. Not as an asset, not as leverage, not as anything except mine. And if you stay, I will do everything in my power to make sure you never regret that choice. Then I'm staying, I said. At least for now. At least until I figure out if this is real or just adrenaline and proximity. He smiled, and it was the first completely unguarded expression I'd seen from him. It's real, he said. But I understand if you need time to be sure. So here's what we'll do. You go back to your apartment tonight. Sleep in your own bed, see your friend, return to your normal life for a few days. If after a week of normal, you still want to see where this goes, you call me. I'll give you a new phone with my number. And if you don't call, I'll understand. No hard feelings, no consequences. Just two people who met during a crisis and recognized something between them. It was more understanding than I expected. More space than his earlier possessiveness had suggested he'd give me. It made me want to stay even more. 1 week, I agreed. And then I'll call. I'll be waiting, he said. 20 minutes later, I was in the back of one of Dante's SUVs, being driven back to my apartment. The city looked exactly the same as it had 48 hours ago, but I felt fundamentally changed. I'd seen a part of the world I never knew existed. I'd been in actual danger and been protected by someone who operated outside every system I'd trusted. And I'd felt something for that someone, something intense and complicated that I knew I needed to examine in the light of normal day, rather than the heat of crisis. Simone was waiting at my apartment, exactly as Dante had promised. She grabbed me in a hug the second I walked through the door. "Oh my God," she said. "Are you okay? The federal agents said you were safe, but they wouldn't tell me anything else. Where were you? What happened?" I spent the next hour explaining everything, watching her eyes get wider with every detail. The men following me, Dante's rescue, the discovery that Marcus was a money launderer, the safe houses and the testimony and the constant danger that had surrounded me without me even knowing it. "This is insane," she kept saying. "This is absolutely insane. Things like this don't happen to normal people." "Apparently they do," I said. "They just happen to me." "And this Dante guy," Simone said carefully. "You're telling me he's basically Mafia, but you're considering seeing him again?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe. He's different from anyone I've ever met. Dangerous, yes, but also honest, protective. And there's something between us, Simone. Something real. Something real with a criminal, she pointed out. Something real with a man who saved my life and asked nothing in return except that I be safe, I countered. I'm not saying I'm going to marry him. I'm saying I want to see where it goes. Is that so crazy? Simone considered this. Maybe not crazy, definitely risky, but then again, you dated Marcus for 2 years and never saw him for what he really was. At least with this Dante guy, you know exactly what you're getting into. Over the next week, I tried to return to normal. I went back to work, where my boss accepted my vague explanation about a family emergency requiring time off. I reviewed contracts and attended meetings and did all the things I'd done before meeting Dante Ravenna. But everything felt different. Smaller, somehow. Like I'd seen behind a curtain and could no longer be satisfied with the stage show. Marcus's testimony had made national news. The Torino organization had collapsed almost overnight, with dozens of arrests and several high-ranking members turning state's evidence to save themselves. Marcus himself had entered witness protection, disappeared into whatever new identity the federal government had created for him. I felt nothing about that except relief that he was no longer my problem. The phone Dante had promised arrived on the 3rd day, delivered by a young man who handed me a box and left without saying a word. Inside was the latest model smartphone, already activated, with exactly one contact saved. Just a first name, Dante. I stared at that contact for 3 days, picked up the phone a dozen times, put it down without calling. Simone watched me wrestle with the decision, offering no advice except, whatever you choose, make sure it's what you really want, not what you think you should want. On the 7th day, exactly 1 week after Dante had sent me home, I made my decision. I called the number. He answered on the 2nd ring. Hello, Naomi. Hi, I said, suddenly nervous. It's been a week. I know, I've been counting. And you still want to see where this goes? More than ever. Did you reach a decision? I took a deep breath. I want to have dinner with you, somewhere public, somewhere normal. I want to talk about your world and my world and see if there's any way they can coexist. And I want you to be completely honest with me about what being with you would actually mean. I can do that, Dante said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. How about tonight? I'll send a car for you at 7. And Naomi, thank you for calling, for giving this a chance. I haven't decided anything yet, I warned him. This is just dinner, just conversation. I'm still figuring this out. I know, but the fact that you're willing to figure it out at all means more than you know. He sent a car at 7 exactly. Not an SUV this time, but a normal sedan driven by a normal-looking driver who greeted me politely and said nothing during the drive. We pulled up to Ravenna's restaurant, and the same staff I'd seen during the crisis greeted me warmly, showing me to a private dining room in the back. Dante was waiting, wearing a suit that had definitely been tailored specifically for him. He stood when I entered, and for a moment we just looked at each other. You look beautiful, he said simply. You look dangerous, I replied, and he laughed. I am dangerous, but never to you. Sit, please. I ordered several dishes I think you'll enjoy, but if there's something else you'd prefer, just say so. The meal was incredible. Course after course of perfectly prepared Italian food, each dish better than the last. We talked about small things at first. My job, his restaurant, the way the city looked different at night. Gradually, as wine was poured and dishes were cleared, the conversation deepened. Tell me about your family, I said. How does someone end up running a criminal organization? Dante was quiet for a moment, considering. My great-grandfather emigrated from Sicily in the 1920s. he finally said. He came with nothing, speaking barely any English, and found work however he could. The legitimate businesses weren't hiring Italians, so he turned to the people who would. It started as labor work, dock operations, eventually moving into protection for other Italian businesses in the neighborhood. Protection meaning extortion, I said. Sometimes. Other times meaning actual protection from other gangs, from police who were less interested in justice than in payoffs. My great-grandfather built something that allowed our family to survive, to thrive. By the time my grandfather took over, they'd expanded into import-export, which, yes, sometimes meant smuggling, but also meant legitimate trade. My father continued that evolution, making more of our operations legal, investing in real estate and restaurants and proper businesses. And you? I asked. What's your vision? Complete legitimacy, Dante said. Within my lifetime. The restaurant is completely clean. Our import business is slowly shedding the illegal operations. We still have connections in the old world, still have the reputation, but I want my children, if I have them, to inherit businesses they can be proud of. No more looking over their shoulders, no more living in the shadows. That's ambitious, I said. Can it actually work? With enough time and careful management, yes. The Torinos failed because they refused to evolve, insisted on maintaining operations that were more and more risky as law enforcement improved. I refuse to make that mistake, but it's a slow process, and in the meantime, yes, I operate in both worlds, legal and illegal, light and shadow. And you expect me to be okay with that? I asked. To be with someone who admits he breaks the law? I expect you to decide if the man I'm trying to become is worth the complications of the man I currently am, Dante said. I'm not asking you to approve of everything I've done or everything I might still have to do. I'm asking if you can see past the surface to understand why I do it. Family, Naomi. Everything I do is to protect my family and to build something better for future generations. That's my truth. I sat back, processing this. What if I can't accept it? What if, after all this, I decide your world is too different from mine? Then I thank you for giving me this evening, for the possibility of something more, and I let you go, Dante said simply. I won't chase you. I won't pressure you. I'll simply hope that someday, when I've successfully made my family's operations completely legitimate, maybe you'll give me another chance. That could take years, I said. Then I'd wait years. You're worth waiting for, Naomi. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. Marcus had been passionate in his way, but always with an urgency that felt more like possession than devotion. Dante was offering something different. Patience, understanding, the space to choose him or not choose him, with no manipulation or pressure. I want to try, I heard myself say. I want to see if we can make this work, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never lie to me. Even if the truth is difficult, even if it puts you in a bad light, I need complete honesty. I can handle a lot, Dante, but I can't handle being lied to. Not again. He reached across the table and took my hand. I promise. Complete honesty, always, no matter how difficult the truth might be. Then yes, I said. Let's see where this goes. His smile was everything. Relief and joy and something deeper. Something that looked almost like love, even though it was far too soon for either of us to feel that. The next 6 months were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Dante kept his promise. He was completely honest about his world, about the decisions he had to make, about the balance between legitimate business and the lingering connections to his family's past. I met his mother. an elegant woman who ran the restaurant and treated me like a daughter from the first meeting. I learned about Italian traditions, about the importance of family loyalty, about the code of honor that governed Dante's world. And I learned about him, about the boy who'd wanted to be a teacher before family obligations pulled him into the business, about the man who donated anonymously to dozens of charities, who paid for neighborhood kids to go to college, who protected people who couldn't protect themselves, even when there was no strategic advantage to doing so. My world and his world didn't always align easily. There were moments when I struggled with choices he had to make, times when my legal ethics clashed with his practical necessities. But we talked through everything. He never minimized my concerns, and I tried to understand the complexities of his position. Marcus's testimony had brought down the Torinos, but it had also created a power vacuum. Dante spent months carefully managing that vacuum, ensuring no worse organization filled the space. He brokered peace between rival families, negotiated territories, and used his influence to push everyone toward more legitimate operations. It was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure, watching him navigate a world I'd never known existed. My friends thought I was crazy. My parents, when I finally introduced them to Dante, were skeptical until they spent an evening with him. Then my father pulled me aside and said, "That man would die for you. I can see it in his eyes. That's not something you find every day, Naomi." On our 6-month anniversary, Dante took me to his private apartment above the restaurant. We'd been there many times by then, but this night felt different. Special. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling out a folder of documents. "These are the final papers dissolving our involvement in our last illegal operation. As of tomorrow, the Ravenna family is completely legitimate. Everything we do, everything we own, is legal. It's done, Naomi. The goal I've been working toward my entire adult life is achieved." I stared at the documents, understanding the magnitude of what he was telling me. "You did it," I said quietly. "You actually transformed your family's business." "We did it," he corrected. "You gave me a reason to push harder, to take risks I might not have otherwise taken. Knowing you were waiting for me to complete this transition made every difficult decision worth it." He set aside the documents and took both my hands in his. "Naomi Clark, you walked into my life during a crisis, and you've been the best thing to happen to me ever since. You challenged me to be better, to finish what my father started, to build something I could be proud of, and I need you to know that I love you. Completely, absolutely, forever." "I love you too," I said, and it was the easiest truth I'd ever spoken. "Even when you're impossible and overprotective and too intense, I love you." "There's something else," Dante said. He pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a ring that was simultaneously elegant and understated. "I'm not asking you to answer right now, but I want you to know that I want to marry you. I want to build a legitimate empire with you beside me. I want children who will never have to explain what their father does for a living or worry about the family business. I want everything with you, Naomi. When you're ready." I looked at the ring, then at him, then back at the ring. 6 months ago, I'd been deleting my ex-boyfriend's number and thinking my biggest problem was getting over a failed relationship. Now I was being proposed to by a former crime boss who'd transformed his life for his family and for me. "Yes," I said. "I don't need more time to think about it." "Yes." He slipped the ring on my finger, and then we were kissing, and the rest of the world fell away. 1 year later, I stood in a beautiful garden behind Ravenna's restaurant, wearing a dress that had taken 6 months to create and holding a bouquet of flowers that smelled like spring. Simone stood beside me as my maid of honor, still occasionally shaking her head in amused disbelief at how my life had unfolded. Last chance to run. she whispered as the music started. "I've got the car running." "Not a chance," I whispered back. "This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." I walked down the aisle toward Dante, who looked devastating in his tuxedo, and I thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. A deleted number, a chance encounter, a dangerous man who'd saved me and then won my heart by being more honest than anyone I'd ever known. When I reached him, he took my hands and smiled, and I knew without doubt that I'd made the right choice. Not the safe choice, not the expected choice, but the right one. "Delete his number or I delete him," I said quietly, referencing the moment when I'd finally blocked Marcus for good. Dante laughed. "Best decision you ever made." "Second best," I corrected. "The best decision was calling you a week later." "That's true," he agreed, "though I might be biased." The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was perfect. And when we finally left for our honeymoon, driving away in one of Dante's cars while our families celebrated behind us, I felt nothing but gratitude for the chaos that had brought us together. "No regrets?" Dante asked as we merged onto the highway. "Not a single one," I said. "Though I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't deleted Marcus's number that night, if I'd kept torturing myself instead of making a clean break." "You would have deleted it eventually," Dante said confidently. "And we would have met some other way. Some things are inevitable, Naomi. Some people are meant to find each other, no matter how unlikely the circumstances." "You really believe that?" I asked. "I really do. The universe has a way of putting the right people in each other's paths when the timing is right. You were ready to let go of your past. I was ready to complete my transition to legitimacy. We met exactly when we were both ready for something real." I leaned over and kissed his cheek. "I love you, Dante Ravenna." "I love you too, Naomi Ravenna. Forever." And he wasn't joking about that either.